This is the ISG Digital Dish.
Welcome to Digital Dish, a podcast for women's voices and perspectives in the digital world. We interview women in all industries because digital affects them all. As hosts, we want to share our passion and humor about the digital world we're part of, and we each bring a unique perspective and view from women in all parts of business. You're going to hear topics ranging from technical to organizational challenges, anything that speaks to how women are tackling issues to improve their environment.
I'm Jeanne Cuff. I have a deep curiosity on how women approach their careers in digital, and I love to hear their perspective on what they do and how they think about the careers. And of course, talking to smart women is fun.
I'm Lois Coatney, and I love hearing these interviews and bringing both a historical view and a future perspective to those interviews. It's so great to have such a variety of women who do so many things in their digital careers.
And I'm Julie Fernandez. I have a human resources perspective, and I really like to think about how these discussions affect people and organizations.
Together, we wanted to make sure smart women and their point of views were being heard.
You know, it's always nice to see you, Lois and Julie. You know, I know we work together at the same company, but it is always fun when we do these because we're in different groups.
Well, and we're not in the same office. This is our opportunity to connect and frankly not talk about business issues or business things. So we get to just talk about what's happening in the world around us. So that's kind of nice to connect with on those topics.
So does that mean we can really tell people that we often schedule this right at 5:00 when we're
And what kind of beverage we have along with it?
You know, the secret sauce.
Well, actually, I interviewed Taruna Rai, who I've known for 4 years. We've been volunteering together, but she's a senior director at a startup company for software. But we had so many problems getting onto this tool. We use Squadcast because her company's PC wouldn't let her get into it. So she actually had to pull out an old PC, personal PC, to get on to do the recording. So that was her recording sounded better than mine too, and I don't even understand that. But
so the latest, greatest technology is not required for podcasts, right?
Apparently not.
Okay.
No.
Got it.
Except for headphones, because now Lois, her headphone just broke. So
Yeah, well, I guess it's telling me something that I need to go buy a new headphone. So that's on my list now. That's on my Amazon shopping list for tonight or for this weekend.
I'm gonna have to buy one too. Then we're all gonna have the same one. So
Excellent.
So anyway, the thing is though about this interview with Taruna, because I did this like a month ago. Well, I just found an article called 10 Things Strong IT Leaders Do Well. And it's really about what's the signs, 10 things that we're going to have to be doing to be successful post-pandemic. And Taruna really addresses almost all of them in her conversation. And it was before we had this brilliant conversation. So there you go. But she talks about adapting to change, making decisions, being a coach, self-awareness. This is the article says this, and she addresses almost all of it in our interview. Seeing people as individuals, managing productivity, team productivity remotely, be kind and courteous, which I thought was really a good one. Anyway, that's an article from the Enterprisers Project. Carla Rutter wrote it. So I just thought that was an interesting thing to bring and as a lead in to the discussion with Taruna.
Well, it'll be great to hear what she says because, I think we're in this hopefully transitionary point of time where some people will be going back to the office. Some people may elect not to, and the companies are beginning to recognize more of a hybrid scenario. It seems like that seems to be the trend now of giving employees kind of a choice of when it's time to come back in and when to be home. But that just creates more I think to your point, how do you manage a diverse team where some are in the office, some are home, they might be going back and forth, and how do you help build that connectivity and collaboration in an ongoing basis, not just in the deep of COVID. So it'll be a good discussion.
Yeah.
My mind's much simpler, as I was looking, I'm like, oh, Taruna. And I misread senior director at Relativity, and I read director of Relativity. And I thought, there's something you could do, right? This makes me instantly relevant. If I'm the director at Relativity And so I have a mental note to myself whenever I'm awarded with choosing my own title, or, I just want to be a director of Relativity. So there you go.
Julie,
that's all the wisdom.
Julie, you have such a different perspective on things. That's all I got to say. And that's great.
I don't know.
Well, let's see if her title meets her conversation. So now I'm really excited to hear about
Me
this.
too. Take it away. Let's cue it up.
Today, I have a friend of mine, Taruna Rai, who's the Senior Director of IT at Relativity. Hey, Taruna.
Hi, Jeannie. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we did talk. We talked the other day a little bit about what it takes to manage, because Taruna, you have a pretty big team, right, at Relativity?
I do. I have a team of about 70 people that are based here in the United States as well as Poland.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so we were talking the other day about some of the challenges with managing a remote working team. We were talking about balance and flexibility. So tell me some of your thoughts on that one.
Yeah, this was a muscle we really had to build as we pivoted in 2020 to all be remote when the pandemic hit. It probably wasn't a muscle we had actually even thought we could build so quickly. But with a remote team, everyone being remote, everyone being in different global locations, of course, which was already a muscle, we were starting to build on with having a Krakow team, but then having to quickly adapt, knowing people were having their challenges of their personal life, managing kids, even living with roommates, having to find a good working space, a way to concentrate in their working space with other people around, or really finding their groove. We had to quickly adapt and pivot our working style to accommodate for that, whether it was being okay with kids or pets showing up on your Zoom calls. I appreciate it. I've had a chance to get to know so many of my coworkers' children, and I appreciate seeing them in the middle of the call. Or, more importantly, figuring out how we start working asynchronously and had that flexibility where we used to be in a pretty meeting heavy face-to-face culture. And now all of a sudden having to adapt to that and leveraging our tools, our technology, and some of our skills that we had to pump up a little bit to make this successful for the team.
What did you do as a manager, a director, to actually help the team, to empower them to do this?
Yeah, there were a couple of phases that we went through. When this first started, there was a lot of time I actually did check-ins with a lot of folks on the team to just hear what was going on and see how they were adapting. So I actually ended up doing a daily check-in with my team.
Oh my God, 70 people?
Just having that space. The rules were to not talk about work or any work deliverables. It's not a status update. It was more just to check in. What are the challenges? Or, everyone also missed that just informal banter.
Right.
So even after some of the days where people did have certain challenges going on, it was just, hey, can we just catch up and see how things are going, or what house projects were people doing, or what new things were they learning how to cook. So that's kind of how it started. And then, as you've probably heard with a lot of folks, eventually the meeting fatigue started kicking in, and we had to transition a little bit differently.
Yeah. No, actually, we didn't hear a whole lot about this, and I didn't hear anybody saying they were doing daily check-ins just to say hi. Because everybody's like, we're doing check-ins for work, or we're doing check-ins for that. But I love that. To me, that's a uniquely female perspective. Like, let's make sure everybody's sane and not losing their mind first.
Seriously. There are times, right? People just were like, this sucks. This is tough. What do I do? I'm so tired of this.
Especially the working moms, the working parents. I don't even know how they're dealing with it. Yeah.
I don't even know. Hats off to all of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then eventually, all right, everyone found their groove. They realized this was more than 2 weeks. And we all pivoted to, okay, we're locking down. We got to hunker down, get back on our productivity, and let's refocus on work, etc. So then, of course, the meeting fatigue kicked in. You're on back-to-back Zooms. You really want to pay attention on the Zooms as much. You have to learn that skill of multitasking in a different way, being on camera, listening, and being in front of your laptop where you have so many distractions that can potentially pop up. So we did the evolution as that happened with then trying to end meetings early to give people a break. So, we all went into Outlook and changed our settings to end meetings 5 minutes early, where it defaulted to 30 minutes. Now it defaults to 25 minutes.
Do you feel like that improved productivity for your team too by cutting it short? Everybody was a little more together, more succinct?
Yeah, it was definitely being a little bit more succinct on the meeting, and then also giving people the time to kind of transition their thoughts and prepare for their next meeting. That little 5 minutes goes a long way.
Yeah.
Just to, okay, readjust, think about the new agenda item that you're about to do, get whatever documents open that you're ready to facilitate or participate in the next meeting. So I think that a little bit of that time goes a long way. And even just having 30 seconds to stand and stretch, if you're not at a standing desk, is energizing for someone when you're on back-to-back calls. So we did that. And then, of course, we started pulling back a little bit on the video component of our sessions. And there's two sides to that, 2 points of view when it comes to video cameras. Some people really like them on to verify that people are engaged and they're participating.
Right.
Some people, it adds more fatigue to them and their personalities, and they don't like to be on camera because of just their comfort, and it adds some stress. Fair on both sides.
The other thing, we all look at ourselves. Let's be honest.
Exactly.
I know I do. I'm like, what is that going on there in my head?
Exactly.
But I do think it does, and I know some people really, it's really distracting depending on the person, and they really have a hard time following. So yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it was adapting, right? Similar to building any inclusive environment, you have to adapt to making things feasible for different personalities, what different people are comfortable with. So we went from that, and then really, as we continued through this, the next piece of what we started doing with just driving clarity is documenting things. And we're not perfect. IT people generally are not fans of documentation.
They're like, I did it. It worked. Here it is.
Right. But those.
Go look at the wiki.
Exactly.
I'm not looking at a stinking wiki.
I know. Or, you do the pre-reads and people put the time into them and, remembering to do them and read them. So that's a whole new muscle to build.
Yeah.
So that part is kind of where we are right now as well, to kind of push on the asynchronous learning working. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's both. It's both. Let's be honest.
It is. That's true. But that way you're not in a meeting, you're optional. You don't need to be there, but someone's going to send out the meeting notes. Which wiki to go to, and it actually will be updated. You can,
true.
Or even leveraging meeting recordings so that if you're not there, you get the recording to watch as well.
We talked about this a little bit. One of the things that we found is that people aren't speaking up and using their camera. And I think we were talking about women not speaking up. And what are you doing to empower them to really kind of get into the game and speak up a little bit,
Yeah, I mean, this was hard when we were all in the office together. And when you're at a table together and speaking up. And now when there's people who are off camera, you can't catch the visual cues that someone's trying to lean in or trying to jump in while there's a lot of chatter going on.
Yeah.
I've done a few different things. One is kind of always bringing us back to the agenda, because I've seen this when, for example, females are leading the meetings and then you have a whole group of guys and they go on a whole different tangent.
Oh. The meandering agenda, the meandering male agenda. No, bring it back, people. Bring it back.
Exactly. So, definitely being supportive and leaning in to be like, hey, can we go back? Is this what we're really supposed to be accomplishing here? Let's get back on track, and helping be supportive from that perspective. But here's also, I think, the benefit of kind of being remote or leveraging technology. There's times where I have Slacked people individually and just, hey, don't you have something to say there in this topic? And the person's responding like, yes. And then that's my cue. I'm like, hey, so-and-so, I think you have a point of view to offer. And I, as a leader, I obviously have more authority, and it's easier for me to cut in on a conversation than someone on their peers. So being thoughtful of that, and then also always encouraging the chat. There are going to be people who just naturally are uncomfortable speaking up, and encouraging chat. And especially in bigger meetings, I'll always point someone while I'm presenting or others are presenting to make sure someone else is on point to monitor the chat and either respond to the chat, or if the person's not feeling comfortable, I have no problem calling out the question or the comment and highlighting that person as well. So it takes a little bit more work, a little bit more coordination and thoughtfulness, but there are so many great ideas out there, and we do have to amplify some of these ideas and make that space.
So we talked a little bit the other day about a little bit of frustration on accountability and prioritizing work. Come on, let's get into the dirt. Let's talk about that a little bit, because I think everybody gets into this like mode. I'm just doing what I have to do, and there's too much else going on. But what is your rant?
My rant?
You have a rant about accountability and prioritization. Come on, give it to me.
I do have my rant, and it's a vicious cycle that is easy to fall into when you're working remotely, and that is especially for like developers or engineers. They are just working on we're agile, so they're just working on the tickets that are assigned to them. They're like, just give me the work I need to do, and I'm just going to do it.
Right.
Forgetting that they have a voice in the conversation. So when we are talking about the work, we are planning it out. If my responsibility is to outline the objective, the outcome, what are we trying to accomplish? How we get there, I mean, within reason, I don't care, right?
Right. You don't want to micromanage engineers to the end or developers to the end point. You want to say, here's what you need to do, but you're right.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's easy to fall in the pattern. Just tell me what to do. Just give me my ticket and I'm going to do it, right? And therefore you're in your mode, especially working remotely. You just have your computer and you're in there. My kind of rant is, right? The success of our deliverables really relies on everyone's involvement of speaking up. And if I knew everything that we had to do, I mean, I don't know, I would be in a much different place in life. I knew all the answers and exactly how to deliver everything and could do it on my own. But my success.
Well, no, you'd be able to tell other people and sit around and eat bonbons. That is always my goal in life. So.
Right. But I mean, that's part of the clarification and setting expectations and boundaries and then driving that empowerment. My job is to clarify what are our priorities, why are we doing it, what is the expected outcome, how are we going to measure success, and let the teams go. And from there, especially working remotely, they should be able to take it from there as I cascade it down, as teams work together, as they now figure out their solutions. It can't be, oh, is this what you want us to do, Taruna? I'm like, no, I can't break it down to that specific level. So yeah, I think it's really important for the success of staying productive, delivering good quality output while we're working remotely. Yes, my job is to provide the clarity, make sure we understand why we're doing this, what's the business value that we're trying to achieve. But part of the empowerment, part of the feedback, and part of my rant is I want people to speak up and I want people to question me. And I want them to challenge me because they have so many great different perspectives. They're more intimately familiar with the technology and the way we've set it up in our organization, right? So I don't know everything of how every configuration is and how we set up things. So I'm going based on the knowledge I have when I make recommendations, but they equally have that responsibility.
Well, that's a problem with a lot of management companies. They were like, no, you're doing it my way. And I think my approach, and it sounds like your approach too, is no, tell me. Here's the beginning. Here's the end. How do we get there? You can tell me because you got that knowledge. And that really empowers people to do it. So I love that concept. I think you're right. And I think a lot of people miss that, because they're so used to their boss is saying, this is how you do it. This is how I want it. All bets are off when you're remote. Let's be more creative about this and let you do your job. Let's empower you to do your job. So I love that approach.
Yeah, that's where, to your point, the creativity and how you problem solve.
Yeah.
Go for it. Be innovative. Come up with a new way. Yeah. Make it better. Exceed expectations, because I'm sure everyone has these great ideas. They feel some of these pain points. So it's a change. It's definitely a change when you're not used to sitting right next to your boss who's good. You can just turn and look over your shoulder and who can tell you exactly what you need to do.
So we talked a little bit about how this leads to the whole concept of innovation and how everybody's like, oh, innovation's really hard when we're remote, we're doing everything. I think this is where the rubber meets the road on the innovation piece, right?
Mm-hmm. It does. I mean, I will acknowledge that when you hear about great innovations, it's usually a group of people that are like working on a problem together and they are in a room and have their brilliant idea. I get that's the traditional idea of it. And that's what we know most when it comes to innovation. I think people forget that there's so many small moments where you can innovate, where you can look at things and think differently. And as we connect our new way virtually and work with each other, there's still opportunities and there's still pain points and there's still things we can do every day that annoy you and frustrate you, but you also equally, with that idea of empowerment, if it's bothering you, if it's driving you crazy, what's stopping you from solving the problem and doing it differently? As long as it's achieving the same outcome, rethink it.
Well, Malcolm Gladwell and Blink did actually say something about innovation. Everybody thinks it's from everybody brainstorming, but not always. And a lot of times you get the ideas with one or two people just like saying, oh, this drives me nuts, let's fix it, Yeah, Malcolm Gladwell's done some serious studies on it, and it's pretty interesting. So, yeah. And I think innovation is tough. I like the idea of small steps.
Absolutely. And it is tough, but I think, to your point, everyone thinks it's this big thing. And each of those process improvements, no matter how small, is impacting someone. It's impacting a user. It's impacting you as an employee. And I don't know why you would want to minimize that impact.
Right.
And I think equally, I know this goes hand in hand with the conversation around innovation is celebrating it, around highlighting it, sharing the failure as well, that's okay. But you'd rather share that you tried something and it didn't work. Why didn't it work? So no one else tries to reinvent the wheel and run into the same roadblock.
I tell everybody, I'm sharing this with you because it failed miserably.
Exactly.
And that way you don't have to do what I did. It took a lot of time and it failed, and now we're going to move on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, listen, those are the things we wanted to talk about for today. So thank you, Taruna.
Thank you.
It's been a joy. It's always fun to talk to you. We enjoy talking to each other.
Yes.
So we've known each other for like 4 years, right?
Yes. It's been great.
Yeah. All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right. That was an awesome interview again with Taruna. So we'll be thanking Jeannie for that here.
To hear some of the women who were in the trenches and having to grapple with all the changes that we've been through and get their insights and what they learned. It's really nice to hear it.
Yeah. So Lois, as usual, I had a couple of sound bites that stuck out to me. So I'd love to toss the first one by you. It really caught my attention when Jeannie and Taruna were talking about innovating in small moments. The first thing I thought was, man, I want to do a lot of things in small moments. In fact, that's like the formula to success these days. And innovate, yes. And it did make me think, but I also want to make sure that people don't just go flying off into the wild blue. I want my team to innovate, but like, give me a little heads up or check in before you do something wildly different,
That's right. Well, I think, if you think about how we work with our teams today, because we're all, we're not in the office looking at each other and being able to, just jump into the office, you got to find ways to just check in with people. And it's those small moments. I think that you're right. It's the art of how do you help to get a status, but yet, kind of encourage and do it in a very short period of time, because that's all you have. It really is about those small moments.
Yeah. And, always looking for a way to be a better leader. It made me think about what can I do or what should I be doing to lead in small moments? So I made myself a little laundry list, right, of, things that maybe I could tackle.
Yeah.
Feedback is one that we hear all the time. People want kind of constant, more frequent feedback. And so real time is great, but I also use a lot the chat, a chat window and sidebar to be able to give some feedback as, things are happening real time, as long as you don't get confused and put the wrong thing in the wrong chat. You're usually pretty good, but there's a risk.
Well, and that's a little bit of a risk, but it's the best, right? Because if you bring it up a couple of weeks later, it might turn into, oh, that was a really big deal, versus, hey, you know what? When you covered that topic, maybe, covering it in a different way. And then it's just very quick, not so, emotional.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and the positive too, right? Because a lot of times, when things are going well, it's not a big enough deal either to reach out afterwards and say, that was a great point. That ought to, bring it home. So the other things that I put on my list were just introducing team members, connecting folks to each other, onboarding. That seems to be one of those things that early on people did, they did on informal video meetings or whatever, but, not to lose that. I also put on my list coach and mentoring folks. So just those bite-sized, frequent touch points, touching base with somebody who's doing something new or stretching into a new role. And for me, there was something really important about that. I admit that I suck at it unless I can encourage the team member to set those little touch points with me, because, our calendars all get so busy. So to me, that's a form of encouraging somebody to speak up, right? They spoke a little bit about how do you get women to speak up? Well, the same way team members won't always go, well, I better just put a touch base on, Julie's calendar. But if I can encourage them to do that in little bite-sized pieces, everything may be rosy, but it allows me to coach and mentor, but I need some help, honestly, as a leader to do that.
I think we have something that we're doing in ISG, which has been pretty successful, is not only in your own teams, but, building connections with others across the company. And I think any company can do this, where you just set up, we call it an exchange program, but, being able to reach out to many people across the globe, right? Different time zones, different organizations, just setting up two people who've maybe not worked at all together at all, and they just get a chance to introduce themselves. And then you find out you actually have more connections than what you thought. And that's also a chance to mentor and to guide. And if maybe as an organization or within our own teams, we just really encourage that, hey, it's okay, pick up the phone or send a IM or just put 15 minutes on the calendar. It's a great way for all of us to mentor and guide, but also just to meet more in the organization that you might be able to work with.
Yeah, for sure. The last one on my list was just kind of like my job plus, right? Which was, I spend most of my time consulting. I think Taruna's people spend most of their time coding. We're focused on that and figuring out how to do that in a remote world. But how do we help our team members find opportunities to sell or upsell, to, get published, to bring some thought leadership forward, or to train a colleague on something that, they know best. And so that's just another area where I felt like, if I can break this down and do it in small moments, I think I would be so much more effective.
Yeah, I think the power of a small moment, even just slimming down meetings and getting into a mode of let's touch base more often, less time.
Yeah.
In each time you set up a meeting, it allows much more feedback, and it allows them to encourage ideas and thoughts. Again, not getting back to, it doesn't have to be a big deal. It doesn't mean I have to create a 3-page PowerPoint presentation. Just if I can have the opportunity just to mention something and get a reaction or get a thought and encourage that sort of communication, I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, awesome. So, well, those were the thoughts that came to my mind, and I did actually have another part of the conversation that really struck me. So, if you're good, I'm going to move on to the next thing.
Good.
Early in the interview, they talked about developing new muscle. And so I think it was specifically, she was calling out pre-reads, just things we have to do differently. And it just made me think, what new muscle do I need to develop to be successful? And I'm kind of a list guy, so, pre-reads was on the list. but I had a few others that came to mind, just even walking through something. I've realized that in my own business development efforts, a client, I might spend a lot of time to develop a proposal or to develop something and send it off to a client. But, are they really, looking at it and digesting what I'm saying without, just scheduling 20 minutes to do a walkthrough and walk them through the highlights is so much more efficient than even sending pre-reads in that scenario, right? So there's probably scenarios for both pre-reads and walkthroughs. And I like for my team to schedule quick times with me and walk me through what you sent me, because maybe I've been back to back on meetings and I haven't had a chance to digest it myself. And so, kind of give me that boost, that turbo boost.
Well, we're becoming we're honing our skills, right, of communicating not just face to face, but we've really honed it to be able to communicate effectively over the phone or through a Zoom call.
Yep.
And I think encouraging ourselves to really use that in small moments, like you said, it's a really good skill set.
So I got a couple more that I jotted down for you. I'll share them with you and then see what others you might want to add to the list. For me, blocking calendars in a very strategic way has become important. Sometimes I know I'm going to need an hour here, an hour there, and I block it for myself. But more often, as things are double and triple booked, blocking meetings as tentative versus accepted, like officially accepted. So people know when they could potentially schedule over an otherwise full calendar, right? I just think we all challenge with too many things on our calendars. And video, I've started really using video subliminals, as we're all on cam more often. People want to know, when do you put the cam on? When do you take it off? Follow the client's lead. But having it on for intros and off in doc shares where it's just distracting, right? Or as a leader, when I'm thinking about, my team and empowering my team, turning it off when I'm expecting someone else to kind of step up and lead the content helps me transfer authority or credibility to that person and gets me out of, the spotlight and ensures that all eyes and focus are on, my team lead who's actually bringing the expertise. So that's who they should be listening to anyways. Just little tweaks to how I might use some of these technology tools have been something that I've been playing with in the last 6 months or so.
Those are really good ideas. I hadn't thought about when you turn your camera off, you are really giving someone else the stage to have their moment and to really get their point across. I really like that. Yeah, that's a good one. I really like that. I'm going to think about that moving forward now too. Well, the other thing that I thought of in listening to this is the thought about resilience. We clearly all have been grappling with this major change. And I think one of the positives, if you can find the positives out of this, is building, I guess, an organization that might be more ready for or accepting of change. I mean, if, the COVID crisis now in late May of 2021 is still roaring across the globe in different places. And, as you continue to adapt to different either grappling with folks who have to work with their families and take care of their families, or you need to adapt to different ways of doing work, it's really, I think, almost made all of us much more resilient in a way that we now see a big change coming at us. And we're probably like, oh, I can handle that, right? I've just been through this huge change. I am so prepared for anything that comes down my path. And I almost wonder if our workforce in before, when I think organizational change management was so difficult, I wonder if we've all kind of gotten used to the fact that the world around us is always changing, and I can just really take care, I can adapt to it pretty quickly. So I'm kind of interested to see how that's going to take shape.
Yeah, it actually fits the whole topic of this muscle thing really well, because once you start using and pressing a muscle, you have to, right? Then that's the best time to train and develop it. And so it fits here perfectly. And I think I see Jeannie, and I know she has something to say about the resilience topic.
Well, it's so funny. I did actually attend ADP had a Women at Work 2021, and there was a lot of great speakers on there. One of them was Marcus Buckingham, which you followed him.
Yes.
But he talked about resilience a lot, to your point, Lois. And he had a couple of things that I think tie into what we're all talking about. One is trust in leaders and the ability to make sure that we're seen, the leaders are seen and telling your employees, like, here's what's coming down the road. Here's the people your team who works for you. Here's what's coming down the road from what we can see. And you don't have to always be right. You just have to be saying, hey, we're looking at this. Also the ability to manage your own workload and the whole work and the cycle of work and rest, because, we're working all the time now. So we all take our little 10-minute naps in the middle of the day. But, it was a really interesting talk. And then the last piece that he had that I thought was really, and these are all things that help build resilience in the workplace. And I think everything we've been talking about helps build that, was you just have to love 20% of what you do. You have to 20%. That's it. It was an amazing number. I was like, what? And by the way, if it goes down to 19, you lose some resilience. But if it goes over 20%, you don't get any more. So 20% of your work, if you love it, you're good. You're resilient.
Wow.
That is so
interesting. I just thought that was an amazing number. That was at ADP's Women at Work 2021. It was really fun. I went in and out.
You know, I'm a huge fan of Marcus Buckingham's stuff. You know, I've seen him for almost a decade probably, and he does some of the most interesting research. So but I've never heard that 20% love 20% of what you do before, and I think my job satisfaction just shot through the roof right now. 20%,
but no more than 20%.
I've had more than 20%. I'm great. I'm awesome. I feel really good.
Check the box. All right, I'm in the right role. Well, thanks, Jeannie, for another great interview, for sharing that with us. That was a really good one to really drum up some ideas.
Till next time, guys.
Thanks for joining us on ISG Digital Dish. If you like our podcast, subscribe and please rate and review us. Thanks.